Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. In case you're new here, my name's Jennifer. Today we're going to talk a little bit about $50 February. Now, if you've been following along for a little bit, if you saw my pantry tour that I posted a couple days ago, then you know that I was challenged to participate in this challenge by Cady over at Mayfield Ranch. So I'm going to go ahead and link her channel in the video description. Now, $50 February is basically a challenge that is hosted by Rich over at the Old Swedes Farm. I'm going to go ahead and link his channel as well. So make sure you check out both of their channels. Basically, the idea behind this challenge is to kind of get people who are trying to live a little more self-sufficient lifestyle, homesteaders, farmers, basically just people who want to disconnect as much as possible from that big commercial food industry or from the big commercial food supply chain. It's trying to just kind of challenge us just to see how self-sufficient we really are and to see how we can get by relying on that system as little as possible. So the idea was for your family to get by spending only $50 for the month of February on groceries and basically to have the rest of your food made up with either just made up with food that you have produced or grown yourself or that you are able to purchase from local farmers. So that $50 figure was based on a family of two, and for each additional person they say to go ahead and add $25 a month. I have two kids, so we're a family of four, so for us that is going to be $100 a month. So the way I've decided to approach this challenge is I'm kind of splitting the month into two parts. So basically I'm going to do two grocery shopping trips. I already did the first one. I'm going to try to spend $50 on each grocery shopping trip, and I'm expecting that food to last us for 2 weeks, combined with everything that we have stored up in our pantry or that we're able to purchase locally from local farms. Now, I will say, because I'm not really an established homesteader, I'm kind of in a journey towards becoming a little more of a homesteader, we aren't able to produce a lot of our own food ourselves. So I am giving myself grace, I'm giving myself a little bit of wiggle room, and I'm allowing myself to also kind of turn this into a little more of a pantry challenge. Now, if you are interested in seeing what kind of pantry stocks I have right now and you're interested in seeing where we're starting from, I'm going to link my pantry tour video that I just did a couple days ago below so that you can go ahead and check that out as well. And so I'm kind of just treating this as a challenge to myself to try to maybe try out some new recipes, some new ways to use some food in my pantry that's been sitting there and that I don't normally use. So I think it's a great way to make sure that food that I've had stored up for a while doesn't go to waste and to challenge myself to just learn a little bit of something new. Now I do want to say, as tempting as it was, I did not go out and really stock up my pantry in preparation for this challenge. I'm just using food products that I normally have in my pantry, for example, flour. I always have lots and lots of flour on hand. We go through a lot of flour in my house, so I always have at least 2 or 3 5-gallon buckets full of flour. And so I'm going to be baking a lot of bread and baking a lot of other things this challenge. I'm not going to be counting that flour usage towards my $50 because that's something I already have on hand. So for example, a lot of pantry staples I always have on hand. So that kind of thing, I might be cheating a little bit and not counting. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show you my first order. This is $50 worth of food, mostly from Walmart. I did get one thing from Aldi. So I'm just going to show you what it is. I'm going to talk about my plans for these items. I'm going to talk about the dinners that I'm planning to make for the next 2 weeks and just how we're going to use all these food products. All right, so here is my not very large food haul. Now, admittedly, I could have gotten quite a bit more food for the same amount of money that we spent if I had substituted non-organic meat for the organic meat that we got. But I decided that I wasn't really willing to compromise the quality of food that we really wanted for the sake of this challenge. So we still went ahead, we got the normal meat that we buy, the organic meat, and we're just going to have to cut corners in some other areas and just eat out of our pantry stores just to make up that little difference. So since I mentioned meat, the bulk of what I spent on this order did come from the meat. I got 1 package of organic chicken breast. Now the plan for the chicken breast is to just put it all in my Instant Pot, cook up all that chicken at once and then shred it, and then I'm just going to distribute that throughout the meals over the next 2 weeks. I'll stick the chicken that I'm not going to use right away in the freezer, and then I can just pull out some frozen shredded chicken. The idea is that rather than making meat-centric meals, I'm going to make meals that are kind of based with other, that are kind of more built with other ingredients and just add a little bit of meat to them. That's one way that we're really going to cut costs this month. Now the next meat that we got is this grass-fed organic ground beef. So I really like this ground beef. I get it in the 3-pound package because it's a little bit cheaper per pound that way. So each of these packages can be separated individually. So what I'll probably do is I think I'm going to stick 2 of these packages in the freezer. I'm going to use the other one over the next couple days, and then when I go to use the other 2, I'll just pull them out of the freezer and defrost them. The last meat product that I got is this package of nitrate-free bacon. I got this at Aldi. This is my one Aldi product. Everything else is from Walmart. So what I'm probably going to do is cook up this entire package of bacon. I like to have pre-cooked bacon in my freezer always. So I'll cook up this whole package of bacon. I'll chop it up and then I'll freeze it in a freezer bag, and then I can kind of pull that out to kind of add to meals as I need it. So I like to use that for things like pizza. If I'm making a pizza, I can just grab a little bit of bacon out of that freezer bag and sprinkle it on top of the pizza. Pre-cooked, it's super easy. Also great for adding to omelets. I am planning to do omelets sometime in the next couple weeks as a dinner, kind of a breakfast for dinner type of meal. So we'll be putting bacon in that. I have a few other meals that I'll be using just little bits of bacon as well. So I find that that is really a great way to make your meat and your dollar stretch. Is one thing we don't have a shortage of is eggs. We have chickens. So over the summer, while our chickens were producing a lot, I water glassed a lot of eggs to make sure that we had enough for this time of winter when they're not producing as much. But they actually have started picking up production again. So between the eggs we still have left that we water glassed, plus the new ones that we're getting, we have lots of eggs. So I'll be making some dishes like omelets and quiches, things that are going to use a lot of those eggs. And adding that bacon to it is just a great way to just really stretch that bacon and just get a little bit of flavor. Now the next thing I got is cream. I got this primarily to use in our coffee, but I will be using this as an ingredient in a few of the recipes that I have planned as well. Everything else that I got is vegetables. I got a pack of carrots. We were out of carrots, so I'm going to be using these for a few different things. I got a couple tomatoes. Now that's one way that I cut cost. In the winter, I do find that the most flavorful tomatoes at the store are the cherry tomatoes or the grape tomatoes, so that's usually what I get. But it was more cost efficient to get these bigger tomatoes. And actually, one of the meals that I have planned is panini sandwiches. And for that, I really like to have the big slices of tomato on there anyway, so I did get some big tomatoes for that. I also got a bag of snow peas. It's kind of a little bit of a splurge item. And I got a bunch of broccoli. So that is my huge, exciting grocery haul, right? It's amazing how little $50 can buy you nowadays. So I'm gonna get all this food packed away. Then I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the dinners that we have planned for the next 2 weeks. So basically when it came to this challenge, as I mentioned, I'm approaching it 2 weeks at a time. So what I did was I scheduled out 2 weeks worth of dinners. I'm planning for our lunches to be mostly leftovers from those dinners. We also have lots of eggs that we can make lunches with. We can also use those eggs for breakfast. I'm planning to make lots of delicious sourdough bread, so we'll have that as well. I'll be doing lots of baking. So those are all lots of options that we have for lunches. For breakfast, it'll be kind of similar. We have lots of eggs that we can use. We do have some cereal in our pantry store, so we'll probably be using some of that as well. Additionally, I plan to do some baking projects like my favorite zucchini bread recipe, which makes a really great breakfast. I've got lots of frozen zucchini in my fridge left from my garden this summer, so we'll be making some zucchini bread. That will make some great breakfast as well. One other thing that we do have is microgreens. I grow microgreens throughout the winter, so we'll be using those as salads for our dinner. So just having that salad component taken care of and not having to pay for that, that really helps cut costs a lot. Also, this past fall, we got a lot of apples from a local orchard, and I preserved them up in lots of different ways. But one way that I'm planning to take advantage of this month, probably in the first couple weeks, is I pre-made some frozen apple pies. I don't have the crust made, but I pre-made the filling and froze it. So I'll be making a crust for that, popping the frozen filling into the crust and baking that up. So that is something else that I plan to do over the next couple weeks, just to make use of those apples we preserved. Now, as far as snacks for the next couple weeks, I have lots of applesauce that I've canned. We have lots of bulk popcorn that I keep on hand all the time. So we'll be making up a lot of popcorn with different seasonings. So that's another really great, affordable, and easy snack that we can make from our bulk stores. Also, as I mentioned, the sourdough bread, again, one of my favorite snacks is just a slice of sourdough bread toasted with butter and homemade jam. That's really delicious. So we'll be doing a lot of that kind of thing. So basically what I'm going to focus on telling you about specifically are the dinners that I have planned. So the first dinner that I have planned for tonight, in fact, is going to be panini sandwiches. Now actually on the counter behind me, I have some sourdough bread rising. So I'll be cooking that up. We're gonna make paninis with that. And today will be the day that I cook and shred up all of that frozen chicken that I showed you. We'll be using that in the paninis along with the tomatoes that I showed you. I have some cheese in my freezer that we can pull out and use. And I have some roasted red peppers in my storage. So all of those things will just work together and make a great and delicious panini. Next for this week, I have planned calzones. Now I can use my sourdough starter and I can make basically a pizza dough. I can use that to make calzones as well. So when I mentioned calzones right now, it actually reminded me that I have one item that I got in my grocery haul that I forgot to show you guys, and that is ricotta cheese. So I got this with a couple recipes in mind. The first one is the calzones that I mentioned. So we'll be using that ricotta in the calzones. I'll be using a little bit of that bacon that I showed you. We'll cook up some of that broccoli, chop up some tomatoes. Makes a really delicious calzone. So that's going to be a really cheap and easy and delicious dinner for us. Another dinner that I have planned for this week is a stir fry using rice. We have lots of rice in our bulk storage, so we'll be using up some of that. And you saw a lot of the vegetables that I have. I got the carrots, I got the broccoli. I also have these mushrooms that I will be throwing in there. These are actually foraged mushrooms. This is basically a maitake or a hen of the woods mushroom that I actually got this probably a year and a half ago, maybe even 2 years ago, probably closer to 2 years ago. Anyway, I dehydrated this up, so all I have to do is soak some of these pieces in water to rehydrate them a little bit. Those will be great in the stir fry too. I like to scramble a couple eggs into the stir fry, and I have some red pepper in my freezer that I can stick in the stir fry as well. So that will just make a really easy and delicious stir fry for us for dinner. So one other meal that we're going to make using some frozen garden produce that I have is spaghetti with tomato basil cream sauce. So I still have some garden tomatoes frozen in my freezer. It wasn't quite enough to make any kind of recipe to can or anything like that, but it's enough to make one serving of pasta. So I'm going to go ahead and defrost those tomatoes. I'm going to cook them up. I'm going to this isn't really a recipe, I'm just going to kind of wing it as I go. So I'm going to cook them up with some cream just to make a nice cream sauce. And I'm going to throw some frozen basil that I have in my freezer from the summer too in there. And we'll have that over spaghetti. So that should be a nice kind of summery meal to have in there. Now I'm planning to make, every once in a while we like to do a breakfast for dinner kind of meal. So this week I'm planning to do a Dutch baby pancake. That is such an easy and delicious recipe, especially when you have access to lots of eggs. I did do a video showing my Dutch baby recipe, so I'll link that in the video description in case you're interested in that. But just know that it's kind of a lighter dinner, but it's really delicious with maple syrup. We have some maple syrup in our fridge that we got from the local farm, which is really fresh and delicious. I also have some homemade strawberry jam, raspberry jam, anything like that would be really delicious on the Dutch baby. I have some frozen strawberries from when we went strawberry picking this past summer, some frozen raspberries from our garden. So all of those will make great toppings for our Dutch baby pancake. I also have a pasta bake recipe planned. That's also going to make use of some of this ricotta. That's going to make use of some of the shredded chicken that I'm going to cook up. We have lots of pasta in our bulk storage, so we'll be using some of that. Lots of tomato marinara sauce in our bulk storage as well. I was hoping to grow enough tomatoes to can my own this year, but I didn't have quite enough to can everything that I wanted. So I do have some marinara sauce in my storage that needs to get used up. So for that recipe, we'll be using that. So I did get enough tomatoes from my garden to be able to make some delicious roasted tomato soup. So I have 2 batches of that, basically 2 meals worth of that in my freezer right now that I roasted up this summer. So we'll be pulling one of those out this week. We'll be making grilled cheese with homemade sourdough bread to go with that. So that's our plan for that meal. So the soup's all prepared, just needs to be defrosted and heated up, and we'll go ahead and make the grilled cheese. So those are the meals I have planned for this week. Next week I have a little bit different of a lineup. I'm going to be using a little bit more of that shredded chicken in a chicken noodle soup. I have lots of homemade broth in my freezer that I can pull out. I have some celery that I've dehydrated. I'll also be using those carrots that I showed you, and I have some egg noodles in my bulk storage. I have some herbs out in my garden that we can use to flavor that. So that will all come together and make a really delicious and easy soup. I also plan to make pizza one day. Again, pizza is a really budget-friendly meal if you make your own crust. So I'll be making my own pizza dough. I'll be using a little bit of tomato sauce from my storage, a little bit of cheese from my freezer, and then I'll also be probably sprinkling a little bit of that bacon on it, chopping up a little bit of that tomato, and steaming some of that broccoli that I showed you. All of that will go on the pizza, along with some garlic from our garden. We still have garlic hanging in our garage, so I'll be using some of that on the pizza as well. That should be really easy and delicious. I also plan to make tacos with rice, so we'll be using another package of that ground beef for tacos. Now, when I make tacos, that usually makes about a meal for us, plus maybe enough for like one person to have lunch leftovers. But what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to stretch it a little bit so that it will be enough for all of us to have lunch leftovers. I always include black beans with my tacos, but this time I'm also going to cook up some rice to go with my tacos. Now I'm calling these tacos. We always call them tacos, but we probably make them a little bit more of a burrito style because we use soft wraps and we kind of wrap it like a burrito. But by adding the rice to it, it's going to make it even more like a burrito. So I think that will just be easy and delicious, and that will give us dinner and lunch for the night. Also, as I mentioned before, I'm going to do omelets one night, so we can use some of those vegetables that I showed you that we got. We can use lots of eggs from our chickens. We'll put a little bit of that cream in there. Just make a really easy, delicious, and cost-effective dinner. One other meal that I like to make, this is something that I make in my Instant Pot, is called Chicken Burrito Bowl. I really like this. This is another really budget-friendly meal. So it's basically, we use a little bit of that shredded chicken if I have chicken left. So if I've used up the chicken at that point, we'll make a vegetarian version, which I have made before. The chicken does add something, but it's really good even without the chicken. So that basically takes rice, it takes salsa, and it takes some chopped peppers and onions. So I actually have a bag in my freezer prepared. Whenever I have extra peppers, onions, and jalapenos from my garden, I like to chop up enough to just pre-make a bag for this meal. So I've got a bag already in my freezer with a chopped onion, chopped pepper, chopped jalapeno in it. That makes the meal prep so easy. So that's just really easy just to throw together. And that definitely makes enough that we can have lunch from it the next day too. So the final meal that I plan to make for this week is like a hamburger soup. I think it's called a beefy tomato mac soup, something like that. I really like that. It's really hearty and it's just really satisfying when it's so cold outside. So I'll be using the beef that I got for that soup along with some tomatoes and some pasta. That's all going to make a nice big soup, which will actually make enough for 2 dinners for us plus lunch leftovers. So that is a really great economical meal as well. It's really easy. You do the work once and you get 2 dinners plus a lunch out of it. So for that reason, it's a winner. That's how we're approaching this challenge. We're gonna see how we do with it. As I said, I am not being super strict about this. This is more something that I'm trying to use to just kind of stretch my culinary abilities, I guess, and also be able to stretch the food that we have, just to kind of get used to cooking with the ingredients that we have on hand. So we'll see how this all goes. I do have a couple new types of food that I want to try out using some of the bulk ingredients that we have on hand, which will probably be in the second half of this month. I know I have lots of potatoes right now, so I do want to try to make some potato gnocchi. So we'll see how that goes. I've never made that before. So I will take you guys along. If I do end up trying that, I'll take you guys along for the ride. We'll see how that goes. Another thing that I am hoping to try this month is to make my own corn tortillas. I did get a tortilla press for Christmas, and I had already bought some masa, which I was planning to try to make corn tortillas with, and life got busy and I just haven't tried it yet. So that is something that I would like to use this challenge to kind of push me to really try that. So hopefully in the second half of this month, that will be something that we get to together. If so, again, I'll try to take you guys along for the ride on that. Not sure how it's going to go because I've never done it before, but I guess we'll find out together. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this challenge. We'll see how we do together. One thing I just realized that I forgot to mention is that I did not include milk in this challenge. That's because I will be purchasing my milk from a local farm. We always buy our milk from a local family-owned farm, and so I thought that kind of fit the qualifications of not needing to count towards the $50 in this challenge, since it's something we're buying locally from a small family-owned business. So I will be buying milk as well. I didn't get it yet, so I don't have it in this video, but I'm not counting that towards my $50 budget. So, all that being said, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you again next time. Bye guys, I'll see you soon.